All right. Well, here we are on the hour. We'll start. Welcome, everyone. These are our Tuesday night education series where we pair up with some of our partners. And tonight we have the privilege of bringing in Onyx Backcountry and Andy Sovick as a product manager, and just so excited to have him come and share expertise. Tonight, our topic is uh, building your own ski zones and creating and organizing and collaborating your run list with digital mapping tools. And that's a mouthful. So I'm gonna let Andy unpack that for us, and I'm really excited for what he's going to show us with some demos and some slides. Uh, just some just some things about how we're going to work together tonight in the webinar. Uh, I'm going to turn the chat on right now so that you can all chat with each other and with us. So we'll see the chat and you can all see the chat for each other. And please just use the chat to just share insights and commentary with each other. But if you have questions for Andy, please use the Q&A function for that. And if there's some questions that I can answer quickly with a link or something like that, I will. But mostly I'll queue them up for Andy at the end of his presentation. He's got a bunch of slides to take us through, and it'll be nice if he can do all the questions at once at the end. So that's all set up for you all. So without further ado, Andy, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Thanks everyone for showing up. And huge thanks to Ari for everything you guys do. I've been surrounded by and part of the Ari community for mostly my whole life. I think I was able to I was lucky enough to spend time with a mentor as a teenager who was a new Ari instructor at the time, and he went through the ranks through pro level, and I was his his pit digger essentially. But I learned a lot from him, and I've learned so much from Ari over the years, and I'm very thankful for everything you guys do and how you're going into the future too. So huge shout out to you guys. Like Ron said, I'm Andy Sovick. I'm a product manager and content manager at Onyx Backcountry. It's a very cool dream job for a map geek who loves to ski and mountain bike and hike and climb. It's my happy place. I also am the founder of Beacon Guidebooks, where we make backcountry ski guidebooks and maps all over the United States, and a cool search and rescue book as well. So making ski zones and mapping out ski content has been part of my life for we're looking at about 15 years now professionally. And before that, I always had a passion for taking photos of places I was going skiing and drawing on maps and studying maps on my living room floor um, for many years before that. So that's where I come from. I'm based in Gunnison, Colorado, and I love skiing this time of year with the low tide that we have. I was just telling Ron, I love exploring random Forest Service roads and ridge lines and things that like I might not get many turns, but it's a cool place I'd like to explore. Um, However, I'm going to give you guys a glimpse into what it looks like to build a ski zone for a place that you either have been a little bit or would like to go, and you're trying to figure out the smartest way to go about planning a ski tour there. A lot of us get done with the ARI class, with the level one class, and our biggest question is like, okay, I want to practice these skills, but I don't want to get in over my head. Where do I go? And I'll try to give you some insight into like where you can start to look and how planning can really help you um, get an idea of if you're getting in over your head or not. So that's why I come up with and use the six P's a lot. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And just about a half an hour ago, as I was filling up my water, I thought of another one. Proper planning precludes perfectly preventable problems. So I have a new six P's that I'm trying it out on you guys tonight. So let me know if that makes any sense at all. But it really rings true. This is something that's fun to say, and I really believe in it. It can really be the difference between a successful mission that you come home standing and a failed mission or just something that didn't go as well as you hoped. We'll start with the shameless plug from Onyx Backcountry. Just for the next week or two, we are running a sale, 60% off Onyx Backcountry for a full year. That means for 12 bucks, you could have premium level membership for a year, or 40 bucks for elite for a full year. So pretty good deal right now. Um, I recommend it. That was, at the end of the slideshow, I'll put that QR code back up and I'll also, let me just paste this link in the chat. Cool. And I don't know, Ron, if you can pin that in the chat or not, but there it is in the chat. And of course, you can find it other places at Onyx Backcountry as well by going to their website and looking for that 60% off sale that's going on right now. Okay, cool. Shameless plug is out of the way. Let's build a zone. So tonight, I'm hoping that you're able to walk away with um, the ability to build a complete ski zone and know what a ski zone is. Have an overview of our building tools, avalanche information layers, terrain analysis, and some fun thing to try out on your own after this. I want you to be able to answer the question, what kind of conditions and weather and group could match this zone? And I asked that question specifically because that goes into the mindset that I bring, and many of my mentors and people that I like to ski with bring to backcountry tour planning. The mindset is thinking about these different elements of a tour plan, like the group that you're with, the avalanche condition, the avalanche conditions, and that other one's supposed to say weather. Weather and terrain. Those two conditional things are the two conditional things, avalanche conditions and weather, are things that are constantly changing. And that's why we like to have a terrain catalog and a run list so that we can use the right run for the right conditions, for the right weather, and even the right group. If you know you're skiing with your spouse today or your kid, like I'm skiing with my teenager this weekend, I'm going to be looking for the right conditions and terrain to ski with him. So those are all adjustable dials to me, right? Sometimes you can't adjust conditions, but you can wait for the right conditions. So I consider that an adjustment. But the most adjustable one that I lean on the most, and it's why I work where I work and love what I do, that's terrain. We can adjust our terrain because it is a fixed element and we can go here or we can go there. And we need to remember that that's in our control. And that's where we can make the good choices or the bad choices. So how do I think about building a zone? It breaks down into four elements to me. Start with an area and define that area. Move on to an approach. How do I get into that area? Build on descents. What's the fun part? And then build an exit if it's relevant. So that is like the basic fundamentals of building a ski zone. And that when you look at Beacon Guidebooks and you look at Onyx backcountry ski content, these are the elements that you're looking at. We break apart the problem of trying to build a ski zone into these four things. And we start adding information to those four things, if that makes sense. So this is what it looks like in OnX. We see an area called Battleship East. We see that approach going up that ridge. We see the descents all over the place. And in this case, I don't think there is an exit defined or drawn out of Battleship because it lands at the highway. But if there was one, then we would draw that line in. This is literally the work of our author. In this case, it's Josh Kling, a mountain guide down in Durango, um, who drew the lines on the map in Onyx Backcountry, exported them as GPX, and we put them into our backend system. So it looks like an overly professional system, but it's just someone like you and me who's building these routes and these zones out. feel like I missed one. Oh yeah, so it was the same thing. Battleship in Beacon Guidebooks, Battleship in Onyx. Okay, but what if you're looking at the map and you don't see anything? There's no guidebook. There's no routes in Onyx. What do we do? For me, this is the fun part. I get to build a zone and I get to maybe go somewhere where it's not popular to go. And contrary to some opinions out there, there's still a lot of unbuilt ski terrain out there that has glorious skiing, top to bottom, where you won't find anybody, and it's all over the map. And that's where we get to build our own ski zones. But it's intimidating, right? Like, how do I go about skiing there? And how do I know that I'm not getting into trouble before it's too late? We'll go through the tools to answer those questions using basic Onyx backcountry route building tools. So we start with the draw shape tool, and then we have build route tools doing the approaches, descents, and exits. So what I like to do first we're not going to build a zone in this area yet, but here's where I start before I go building a zone. I want to get oriented with the area. And how do I get oriented with with the area? I start in Onyx with turning on different layers and getting a lay of the land, basically. So this is a little demo, just showing the different layers that we might go through. I'll use all these different layers to understand different elements of it. So topo lines is the clean way to start out. Going to satellite imagery really makes it realistic. And then going to that recent imagery can really help if you want to know what it looks like a certain time of year. Using slope aspect, very helpful. We'll get into these terrain layers as I demo, but using the avalanche terrain exposure scale can really help you get a lay of the land and what you're getting into. The Avalanche Simulator, my favorite tool that we've built this year. We'll get into that as well. And we can play around with these other things, right? Private land, government land. Maybe you're interested in cell coverage layers, things like that. It all helps us get a lay of the land, but that's a basic overview of the tool of the layers that we're going to use as we get into the tools to build these zones. Okay, I think one of the biggest I think one of the biggest problems and one of the most intimidating parts of going from a level one class to where do I go is is even thinking about where do I want to go? Like where do I start? I already know the places that are the roadside attractions. I see tracks on them. But like where else can I go and how do I poke around the corner without getting into overhead hazard or just doing something dumb? Um, and if I'm just gonna practice building a zone in Onyx, like where do I practice? Do I just go to some random place on the map and pretend it's a ski zone? Um, so what I like to do, and where this all started basically, is I went for a ski one day. I got up to the ridge and I looked across the ridge and said, "What is that? I want to go ski there. How do I go ski there?" And I'd go home, I'd pull out a paper map and I'd say, okay, it's called, what am I looking at here on the screen? It's called Schuylkill Ridge. I wonder if you can skin up that ridge or if you need to just like go up that finger of trees on the face. Let me look at the topo lines. And what about that next ridge over? Geez, I see a chute in that drainage. Maybe I could go ski that someday. Or like, look at that summit. Maybe I could make a spring mission out of that. And so when I think about where I want to build a new zone from scratch, I think about what have I been dreaming about? What did I see recently that like drew my eye in? So, in other words, you got to go out there and like have seen something in person, I think, to really say like, okay, I think there's something over there and I want to go explore it. I'm going to do some proper planning virtually to make sure that I'm not getting in over my head. So it's a mindset that I bring to my daily tours, even if you're just doing a tour that you do all the time. Like when you get to the top, look around, look for something else that you might want to ski next weekend. Go home and build a zone. So this is where I'm going to demo building a zone, Monarch Pass, because this is exactly the scenario I just described is true for me on Monarch Pass. So like I said, I live in Gunnison, which is just an hour west of Monarch Pass, and I ski at the ski area there quite a bit, and I ski these perfect trees that you see on the map quite a bit, and Snow Stake Bowl. I hike there in the summer, and most importantly, or I say most relevantly, I drive that highway all the time. And I think I'm in the right crowd, and you're all with me that when you're driving over a pass, you can't help but look out the window a lot and look for ski runs that you might want to ski someday. So maybe I'm wrong about what I said earlier. Maybe you don't have to go out onto the ridge to look and find a place that you're intrigued by. Maybe it's just driving over a pass and you want to get on the computer that night and see what it's all about. So the questions that I ask right away is what do I already know and what can I start with and what can I learn where can I learn more before I begin? And by those questions, what do I mean? I mean, in this case, I know that I know that I can ski Snow Stake Bowl. I've done that many times. It's a very simple tour right off the highway that you can do like in 45 minutes on your way somewhere. Um, I know that there's already some good ski content and some approaches that I could use and maybe kind of use as diving boards for venturing into new terrain. Um, so that's what I can start with. Where can I learn more before I begin? The internet is vast, and there are a lot of places to look for good information, and there's a lot of places to find bad information. But it's worth looking, right? Look for blogs, look for trip reports, get into some of the routes in Onyx Backcountry and see if they mention what's over the ridge. And then, of course, I would be remiss not to say, look at guidebooks. There might be guidebooks for this area. So start there. What can I learn before I even start e-scouting? So with that, I'll jump into the demo. So we don't have to look at this guy. Okay, I'm gonna check the chat and make sure there's not any big red flags. Cool. Okay, so this for the sake of a demo, you'd think I'd be starting way zoomed out because that makes the most sense. This is how I plan my own tours and how I just about start any new job in OnX is I start very zoomed out and I make sure my map is clean. If I start out with a dirty map, with a cluttered map with like lots of stuff on it, then for me that's just visually troubling and I'm not going to get the job done as well as I'd like to. So how do I clean up the map? I've started with a clean map here. But let's say it wasn't clean. Let's say I had the forecast on and slope angle shading, and recently I'd been playing with government land, and I really wanted to see uh, AT&T cell coverage. And so if I'm zooming in on this map, Um, it's pretty noisy, right? I don't even see a map. I just see a whole bunch of different layers stacked on top of each other. Sometimes that's what you wanted, but other times you just got to clean up before you start the job. So I go into that layers menu and I turn off just about every layer there is. And I'll keep my content on. And the main reason there is I'm going to be drawing content. And if I have my content hidden, then every time you finish drawing a new route or polygon or waypoint, it disappears. So, hot tip for you there. Keep it on, and you can hide individual items and folders if your content is in the way, which in my case, sometimes it is. But I've got most of my folders hidden today. How do I hide my folders? May as well answer that question since we're doing an Onyx demo. Over here on the left, I've got my content where I have a whole bunch of different folders, and you can see I've got 47 tracks, 139 routes, and 233 waypoints all over the place. And I clicked on Hide All in this three-dot menu, and if I clicked Show All, you'd see it all now. But I don't want to see it all. Like I said, I want a clean map. I could further clean this up. If you don't want to see all Beacon Guidebooks ski routes, you can click on the filters menu and toggle off show route, and now you've got a super clean map. So that's where I like to start. I said I was going to go to Monarch Pass. Um, it's actually got some pretty good snow right now, so a pretty good place to go ski. We have a little bit of content in Onyx Backcountry, and it's the roadside attractions. Man, if you've ever driven up road Monarch Pass, you've looked over and you've said to yourself, those are some perfect trees. And they are. They're perfectly spaced trees. They've kind of got some odd corn rows now because of a timber harvest that happened recently, but um, they're still pretty sweet. The only problem is it's often a thin snowpack. So at the moment, I wouldn't say they're so perfect. But whenever I'm touring up there, I get up on this ridge and I look into this basin and this basin. And I say, that looks pretty good. Little spicy for the conditions today, but someday I'd like to go there. So I'm going to build a zone and think about what conditions I would be comfortable skiing that zone in. So we've oriented ourselves to the map. We've picked out a spot that where we say like, okay, I want to build a zone. How am I going to go about doing it? The first thing I want to do is orient myself to the place, get to know it a little bit better. This is e-scouting 101, really. So I'm going to click on that layers menu again, and usually I'll toggle between satellite and topo. And when I really want to get to know a ski zone, I get into 3D. So you can either hit this 2D, 3D button down here on the right, or if you're on a desktop, you can right click and then hold that right click and begin tilting and zooming and dragging and doing all that. So you can also hold down the command or control button, depending on your device, as you click and zoom around. And of course, on mobile, it's pretty easy to get into 3D and move around. Do keep in mind that we have added the ability to take 3D offline for Onyx Maps. So obviously your desktop you can't, but if you're on a mobile device, um, you can download a map, and in that download you'll get 3D offline as well, which for skiing I find to be super useful. So here I am looking at these bowls that I've been intrigued by over the years, still have never skied down into, and maybe partly because I've never built a zone. And so I should get to know it better. So I'm looking at this and I see summer time conditions, which I can envision what snow would look like, but I'd rather just click on snow imagery so I can really get an idea of what this terrain looks like with snow on it. I may as well mention that we also have recent imagery, and sometimes it's amazingly clear, and sometimes it's like this. It's a little bit blurry, but it gives you an idea of snow coverage um, about 2 weeks ago. But if I'm like planning a spring tour here, maybe I'd go back to mid-April or early April and say, what did it look like then? Okay, there's usually pretty good coverage in early April. So recent imagery can really help with tour planning and route and zone building. But the point of turning on these layers is to get acquainted, right? And I'm zeroing in on this kind of basin right here. When I think about building a zone in OnX or in Beacon Guidebooks or for my own self, I usually am thinking about I'm using geographical features to create boundaries before I even start drawing. So if you can see what I see a drainage and a bowl, a basin. And I usually will let a basin define my zone and I'll draw a polygon or something around it. So that's kind of what I'm seeing here is on this left side, I see this bulge that holds the left side of this looker's left side of this basin, and then this ridge line here that holds the looker's right side of it. So I'm kind of looking at this area now. Not quite done getting acquainted with it. I'd like to turn on slope angle shading, a classic favorite. Usually when I start out with it, I like to toggle down the brightness a little bit because it's a little bit more visually understandable for me. But what am I looking for when I look at slope angle shading? We're looking for those places steeper than 30 degrees because that's avalanche terrain, or that's where an avalanche can release from at least. Um, so I'm looking at this green stuff, this white stuff, and then as it tips into that 30 degrees, I see the orange colors. This last year, Onyx added a layer for 12 to 24 degree terrain. And this was a pet project of mine where I said, look, it's really nice when we paint the avalanche terrain, but wouldn't it be cool if we painted the terrain that we could ski in um, that's still skiable? So instead of making everything below 30 degrees the same color, we decided to separate this 12 to 24 degree terrain. And that's all that green stuff that you see. In other words, that's the stuff I'm looking at and saying, wow, like even in more elevated danger, I might be able to ski some of that stuff because it's steeper than 12 degrees, which is like the bare minimum of what I think you can make some some turns on up to 24 degrees, which is still kind of staying in like way below what could release an avalanche. However, one story slope angle shading doesn't tell is the runout. It just gives you an illustration of where an avalanche might start. But if I were using that just as my own decision-making layer, I might look at this bench where it's not even 12 degrees. It's flat. And I might say that could be a good safe zone. Or even down here, I might say that's a good safe zone, or some of this other green stuff on the mountain. And that's why I started using the avalanche terrain exposure scale developed by Parks Canada almost 20 years ago, actually 20 years ago, which tells us the whole story. So if I turn on this avalanche runout simulator, which is one of the components of the avalanche terrain exposure scale, this is the coolest feature that we have. This is the one that I get most excited about, and I think is underused by a lot of us backcountry skiers. Um, the avalanche runout simulator tells a different story. So if I turn off slope angle shading, now I've turned on a layer that says, here's where an avalanche could go. At first, it can be kind of like visually noisy. Let's go to a basin just across the way where it's a little bit more obvious how this terrain behaves. So once again, I'll turn on slope angle shading. This says like right in this basin is totally green, flat. For the trained eye, you can see there's overhead hazard, right? That's not rocket science, but you want to see like, okay, like does that mean we should like ski way away from here to stay out of overhead hazard, or could we cross on this bench? And that's why the avalanche runout simulator can be a really powerful tool. What we're looking at, and you can always click on these layer details to learn more and to get the kind of the legend of that layer. But what we're looking at is an illustration of an avalanche. This is using a gravitational model uh, and physics and slope angle and force density and saying, where could an avalanche theoretically get to if it slid? And the different colors represent different sizes of avalanche. So where you see the furthest run out here, that purple boundary, that's like our 1 in 100 year, maybe never ever avalanche, but physically possible. And these days we saw in like the year 2019, we saw avalanches happen that were the never evers. They ripped out forests that were 100 years old. Um, so it's nice to have an illustration if for some reason you're in the backcountry during that high of danger, where an avalanche could get to. And if you want to increase your margins, now we've given you a visual margin to use to play it safe. As you get away from that purple and get into more of those the green and blue, you'll get to that more like 1 in 30 year avalanche, which is what I think about when I see a persistent weak layer and a persistent slab on top of it. These green lines, boundaries at the green to purple is what I'm looking at for my getting too close to the margin of error, right? Okay, so that's the runout simulator. Sometimes it can be a little too much. Sometimes it really illustrates the avalanche perfectly. More simplified, turning on the eights scale can just say, okay, green, blue, black, simple, challenging, complex. What kind of terrain do I want to stay in today? What kind of terrain am I looking at? So you can see a similar shape to that avalanche runout simulator illustrated in this avalanche terrain exposure scale. This is taking slope angle, everything else that might contribute to a release area, such as forest density and slope shape, and that run out gravitational model and putting it into a little bit easier format to say, are we going into simple, challenging, or complex terrain today? Okay, let's go back to building a zone. We've gotten super acquainted with the area, maybe too acquainted. Let's build a zone already. Like I said, what do we already know? Where are we starting? Well, I already know that if I want to get into here, I would be approaching from Monarch Pass. Good bang for the buck. You're starting high elevation, and I've already got a skin track to work with from Onyx and some other options if my plan doesn't work out. So knowing that I'm going to be climbing along that ridge, I think I have everything I need to start building this zone. So first thing I do is I grab onto this draw shape polygon tool, and I can start clicking away and drawing right now. And I can either change my colors and line style now, or I can change my colors and line style at the end. I like to just start drawing. So, like I said, I use that shape of the basin for my own mental model. And I'll just say, like, as I build this, don't think too hard about it. Just start building the zone. You can edit it later. You could be totally wrong. It could be a terribly drawn zone, and you've at least done some practice and learned something along the way. You can always delete it. You can always edit it. And I think most often what you'll end up doing is just making some adjustments to it as you learn more as you get out there and explore. So, like I just said, like don't overthink it. Just like build that polygon. You can make adjustments to that line if you're in edit mode. You can add points to it if you want to change something. Usually for zones, I like to draw them what I think their terrain avalanche terrain exposure scale is. And I am already aware that there's some complex and challenging terrain in here. So I'm going to color this black. I don't want the opacity to change, so I'm going to make it transparent. And I'm going to name it. Maybe I'll rename it Bowl. I'll name it Bowl 2. I'm literally doing this for the first time, guys. I'm hoping to demo what it's like for the common person to build a zone. I can add notes if I want. And most importantly, I want to add it to a new folder. So my new folder is going to be called um, Monarch Pass New Zone. I'm going to save it. And just a note in case I forget to say it later, when you save a folder, you can share it with your ski mates. So you can share it collaboratively so they can add to your zone, or you can share it non-collaboratively so they can just look at it. So that's a new feature that we added this last year. So I'll save that. It's added to that folder that I just built. I've got some basic stats about it, and and I'm started. Since I want to build out this complete zone, agnostic of Beacon Guidebooks, I'm going to go ahead and build my own approach. So I'll use Build Route tool over here, and once again, I can name it now or add the colors and line styles now, or I can do it when I'm done. Oops. And what often happens, especially with backcountry ski route building, is default, your route builder wants to snap to some existing trail or road. And so even if I bring my cursor up here, it's not going there. So I need to select this point draw method, and that way I can draw anywhere I want. While I'm drawing, I suddenly say to myself, do I want to climb up a forest or up an open slope? I need to see this better. So mid-draw, you can turn on satellite layer, and now we're drawing in the snow. So yeah, in this case, I don't think I want to follow that prescribed route. I think I'd rather stick to the trees, maybe tic-tac up these trees, hit this little ramp right here to those trees, hit the ridge, put on my wind layer because it's the Continental Divide. go along the ridge, and that's kind of the top of the zone. So I'll name that approach. I like to color my approaches green with dots. I'll add it to the folder, save it. I'm on to the next. So we've got a zone drawn, we have an approach drawn, and now it's time for the fun stuff. We're going to build some descents. So I'm going to click on that route builder again. And like I said, don't overthink it. You can build a descent that's a terrible idea. You can even label it terrible idea. You can write in the notes, this might not be a good idea, but just draw it. It's good practice. You can even draw a route that you say, like, I don't ever want to do this route. So you can add as many as you want. The first one that strikes my eye is like right off that summit, point draw, going right down that basin. Uh-oh, we hit a bug. Happens in live demos every time. Okay, we're back. Where was I? Skiing down this basin. That's a route. I'm going to call it tight basin. I like to color my runs, my descents, with the dash lines. And if I think it's in complex terrain, I'll mark it black. If I think it's challenging terrain, I'll mark it blue, and so on. I'll save it. Let's add another descent to this area. One that I'm pretty intrigued by, I think this is what struck my eye the first time I was up on that ridge, is from this summit over here, these kind of more mellow looking glades and what looks like a cool fall line run that could go on for quite a while. I'm guessing I'd probably stop around there and consider skinning back up from there. And it does look a little bit more mellow, so I'm going to mark it as blue. I'm going to name it South Facing Bowl. And I can't think of any notes to add to it, but that's where I would add some notes. Once again, I'll add it to my folder. I'll save it. Okay, so we've got zone, approach, descents. I would add a lot more descents to this, but you get the point, and we don't need to add a whole bunch of descents to this. But uh, that ridge line intrigues me there. Just kind of center punching that bowl looks kind of fun to me. This little B route over here, like maybe that's a lap route that I could build, but lots of options. One thing I noticed about this zone, this is my segue into drawing an exit, is I don't like this lower thing. First of all, I know that snowpack is already thin on Monarch Pass most years, and so going over a steep valley feature sounds like I'll scrape my skis and possibly get into a surface horror problem that I didn't predict when I was up higher. So I already know that I want to get back out of here. So I'm gonna like just in case I'm gonna be sending this to friends. I think I'd like to just like draw a I keep forgetting to hit point draw. I'm going to draw a line for myself to remember where I don't want to go beyond. And I'll mark it red for hazardous. Okay, back to the exit. I see a few different options here, and I'm just going to go for it. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I see if I'm at the bottom of this run, or maybe even if I took this upper bowl down some of these lower angle glades, I end up somewhere in this basin, and I want to get out of it. So I'm going to draw an exit, and I see there's a summer road here. Um, I already know that if I'm going to be climbing back up this thing, I'm going to need some stable conditions to go up this head wall. I see wind slab hazard here all day. I see a terrain trap at the bottom, and I'm not liking it for mitigating my hazard, but in the right conditions, it's okay. So I'll draw that exit in. Oh, let's do pink. Exit eye exposure. Save it to my folder. And I think I'd draw an alternative exit. I think one, like kind of my safer, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. My safer exit option I see right off the bat is maybe going over here and kind of staying on this more broad ridge. And once again, like I said, let's not get too fussy with the details. I can always adjust it later as I learn more about this zone. This is me just e-scouting and hypothesizing the best way to go about tackling this zone. And name it maybe less exposed. Add it to my folder. Done. What else can I add here? I think the waypoints are worth adding. Places such as the tops of like where you might want to transition, where you might want to transition at the bottom of a run. I really like marking avalanche hazards, wind slabs, sorry, wind catch zones, and maybe safety zones. So I could add a lot of waypoints and add them to my folder here. For the sake of time, I'll let you use your imagination. Once I have that folder made, here it is, Monarch Pass, new zone. And like I said, I can share it and I can either have it be a collaborative folder with my friends, or I can make it view only so that they can like check it out and then and not add to it. And we can adjust access like on the way too. So it's not like committing forever. You can adjust the access on the way. And then you would hit that share button and you'd get a link and you'd text it or email it or airdrop it if you're next to each other to your ski partner. That is the gist of building a ski zone in Onyx. The more zones you build, the better you are. You can keep going. You can add a zone right next to the one you built. You can go to a place in the country you've never been, but I do feel like that's kind of, to me, that's more advanced and a little bit more abstract when I'm trying to build a new zone. I really like to start with some place I've already been and I've looked over and I've peeped into and I want to learn more. So, um, thank you for bearing with me. Thanks for paying attention, and I hope you got something out of this. Like I said, I'd share that QR code for the Onyx membership again here. The link is also in the chat, and and thank you. I think it's a good time for Q&A,
Yeah.
which Ron has queued up.
Yeah. Um, let's see. There's a couple questions just about Onyx specifically. So we have a question here that wonders if other digital mapping resources have better resolution. He's he's heard that Onyx doesn't have as good a resolution as CalTopo. So he can you defend your resolution in Onyx?
Yeah, I'll say, and I'm very familiar with all mapping platforms. I've used them all throughout my career. In just about every location in the United States now, it's not true 100% of the map, but it is like a lot of the map. We have LiDAR-based resolution. mapping and topo. And you can see it really well in definition here, which is why I zoomed in on this feature. You can see like if you see this kind of like shading and these underling all these undulations in the terrain, that is LiDAR. No other mapping tool has anything higher resolution than that. That is by far the cream of the crop, the top shelf resolution mapping that you get. That's across all of our products. So Hunt, Off-Road, and Backcountry all use that LiDAR mapping. So we update it regularly. So if you heard a year ago that we had a certain type of resolution, it's worth checking again. Same goes for slope angle shading. We used to use a 10 meter, and now we're every slope angle shading from Canada through Mexico is 1 to 3 meter resolution.
Nice. The second part of that question was that this person's, I guess some of his crew doesn't like the fact that 30-degree terrain shading starts at brown. They don't like the brown. Why do you think that color is the default setting on the slope angle shading for Onyx?
Oh, I mean, I would call it orange, but I I can see brown. I can see that. Like it's yeah.
Gotcha. Um,
Um, yeah. But
okay.
explain the question again real quick.
It's just I guess the brown is not the best color scheme according to some debate he's been a
Gotcha.
part of.
Gotcha. Good feedback. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, this definitely we squeeze some of these other slope angle ranges in order to accommodate for that 12 to 24 degree terrain. So maybe that's kind of the shock that
mhm,
you're talking about. And that's great feedback. I appreciate that.
cool. The next question is Dean wants to know about does the 3D tilting work for Android?
Does the 3D filtering work for Android?
The tilting. If he
Oh, yeah,
downloads the map and okay, great.
absolutely. Yep.
And Dean had another question about adjusting some of the colors and weight of lines if he can adjust the defaults, and you answered that one for him.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have fun playing with the different line styles, but I also have learned after building thousands of routes, I like to make a system and try to stick with it, right? That's why I said I like to build my approaches with green dots. I like to build my descents with green, blues, and blacks, and then, exits, I don't think I actually have a default color for, so maybe I need to add that. But yeah, it is good to like just invent your own system and stick with it. It can really help with organization as your library grows.
Cool. Next, Aaron is curious about the Runout Simulator, and is curious if that's only available with the Elite subscription. Like, what subscription levels open up what layers? And
All subscription levels can see all the avalanche layers. Um, However, the avalanche layer does not exist. The avalanche layers do not exist in all mountain ranges. So it's been my project over the last couple of years, with the help of course, an incredible team of engineers and data scientists and GIS folks. But the majority of Colorado ranges are covered. However, and let's see, Colorado, Montana, California, Washington, Oregon, um, those are quite well covered. The Tetons are covered. I'm sure I'm missing something else. And then in the next couple days, we'll see the White Mountains of New Hampshire covered and Taos, New Mexico as well. So we're adding it slowly, but most places where we ski have eights. But if you don't see it in your area, that probably means that we still haven't finished it. So put the request in, tell me where you want it. I'd love to be told where to go next.
nice.
It is in
Um,
Utah. It's in most all the Wasatch has it and the Uintas.
cool. Next, Brandon asks, what's the advantage of creating a ski zone rather than just creating a map with a bunch of descents on it? It's a,
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, One I probably should have answered in the intro. This is, I'm not going to say if it's better. It's the way that I have been building my terrain catalog for 30 years. So when I first learned avalanche education and was told to start building my run list, I started drawing polygons on paper maps, just to start like defining that zone. And I think what it helps me do is it helps me define the terrain as it relates to avalanches and the backcountry skier. And it's not just about a route. A route in a way is almost absurd for backcountry skiing because in a basin like I was just drawing in, you can ski anywhere in that basin. Like, why draw a line? We don't ski lines. We ski, unless it's a couloir, we could ski anywhere in that basin, anywhere in that bowl. So, in fact, the first Beacon guidebooks that we made, I didn't draw any lines. I just said, here's the bowl, here's the basin, here's the face. And I thought I try to think about my terrain in terms of zonal. I can pick my line anywhere that is appropriate or, has the best pal, whatever I'm looking at. But I encourage you to use the zones, but it's not a law. It's just what works for me.
I like how your process for zone like makes us go through a series of things that we want to think ahead about, like what's the approach and what are our run options when we get in there? That makes us inventory hazard, and then how do we get home? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate that there's kind of a process that comes with the zone.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just like with just about everything we do, we talk so much about cognitive load in the avalanche education world, right? And trying to trying to build a run list, trying to decide where to go, especially if it's somewhere new. Hut trips are like my mortal enemy when it comes to route planning, right? Like it's unfamiliar terrain. I'm going with a large group. I'm not in charge of conditions because we have this weekend to do it, and we're stuck with the conditions that will be given. And that's when I really want to start focusing on that terrain catalog and building it out. Breaking those problems, those complex cognitive load problems into small bits and pieces like zones, approaches, descents really helps me get started and kind of drop my intimidation.
cool. Um, Ashley asks, is it possible when building descent routes to automatically color code them to eights to the avalanche terrain exposure scale?
Yeah, to automatically to automatically color the routes you create to eights. It's not possible now. We do have a prototype that we're working on that would do that for you. Basically, if you like when you build a route, we'll tell you, like we'll basically color the segments of that route that cross through the different levels of exposure. So, not going to promise it, but it's a great idea. I'm glad you asked it because it's something that I'm really excited about.
Next, Greg asks, are all the beacon map zones on Onyx?
Sorry, say that again.
All of your beacon maps, all the maps from your guidebooks, are they all in Onyx?
Yes, they are. Um, news news there. Silverton, we are adding 188 new routes from Beacon Guidebooks. They came out with a new edition of the Silverton guidebook this year and a whole bunch more routes. So you'll see this complete map change significantly this year. So that's really cool if you're going on a hut trip, Red Mountain Pass, anytime soon. The huts around there have been really well built out by Josh Kling, that author. Other zones that are coming live any day now is Vail Pass, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams. I think that's it. So that's this year's beacon routes.
Sweet. Um, Jens was hoping you could demo one more time the how do you get the current satellite imagery loaded?
How do you get the recent imagery layer?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
recent imagery. Yeah.
Yeah. Good question. So layers menu, satellite, and if you're in mobile, it's slightly different. I can look for you here, but we'll see this preferred base map imagery, and we can click on recent imagery. And then down at the bottom here, we can see all the different dates to select from. These are 2 week periods going back to 2023. In mobile, in iOS, can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll tell you right now. When you click on the layers menu in mobile and you see the base map, topo, hybrid, or satellite, you can select satellite, and then there's an option to view list below you. And there you'll see the same interface that I just showed you there, where preferred base map imagery selector.
Cool. Um, Next, someone wants to know if the maps and routes are viewable on their watch, their Coros, their Garmin, their Sunto.
We do not integrate with any watches right now. So what I do with my Suunto watch is I track myself while I'm out in the field, so I can keep my phone away from my transceiver and keep it warm. And then I export the track out of my Suunto app into Onyx, and that's a pretty quick and easy workflow. I know with Apple Watch, it's even easier to do that same thing, but you're tracking with your watch in its own software and then exporting the GPX into Onyx. But at first, I was very annoyed by it. Once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. We still discuss integrating with a watch, but it hasn't happened yet.
Cool. Um, a bunch of questions were hiding from me in the chat, so I'm bumping over there. Andy, Mike wants to know if there's any plans to extend layers and capabilities to the European Alps.
No promises, but keep your eyes peeled. Um, Alps, New Zealand, Japan, Iceland, and Chile, Argentina are all frequently discussed. But a lot of us who are working on a ton of things at once are saying like, let's not bite off too much. Let's make sure we get these things right in the States first. But rest assured, there are dozens of passionate backcountry skiers that work at Onyx, and we're all chomping at the bit to go to the next place. So, question.
Cool. Grace is curious if they take advantage of this coupon code, will that change anything about their current subscription? What does the coupon do to the current subscription?
Um, it's not my wheelhouse, but at first I would ask customer service, info at Onyx Maps, and yeah, I don't have a clear answer for you, and I'm sorry, it's not my wheelhouse at the job, but I'd ask customer service, and they'll let
Yeah,
you know when they'll set you up.
that sounds like the safest way to move forward, Grace, is just double check before you before you do. Um, well, Andy, that clears out our questions, right? Just nailing the time plan too, right in at 7 o'clock.
Oh yeah, nailed it. I do see a message from Andy Paul. I don't know if I'll be able to copy and paste that email address. So my email address, you're welcome to reach out to me, is andy.sovick@onyxmaps.com. Love to talk to you about tar and eights. I could talk about eights 12 hours a day, 365 days a year. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for catching that.
Yeah.
Um, well, everyone, thanks for joining us. Andy, thank you so much for the presentation. Please tell everyone about this content. It'll be available on YouTube by tomorrow. So thank you all. It was a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
And folks are just bidding you adieu in the chat. Andy's just signing off one at a time.
See some friends in there, so it's always nice.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to close it out. Thank you. Good night.
Night.